What is going on, everybody? We have made it through NFL Week 1. My goodness, it was fun to see all of those narratives we talked about over the summer begin to play out here and begin our 2020 NFL journey. And here we are beginning our power rankings journey for the 2020 season. This is going to be your regularly scheduled content here every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Eastern time. So make sure you guys subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any weekly power rankings. And of course, please do hit that like button. Really helps support my channel more than you know. So here we go. We are going to get into the movement here. This is going to be based off of my NFL deep dive series over the summer. So lots of movement here. A lot of these rankings stemming from several months ago. So lots to react to, not just week 1. Some news and notes from the last couple months making some big shifts for a few teams as well. But here we go, starting at the bottom with the 32nd ranked team, a new team here. Now it will be the New York Jets, who just jetsed their way to an 0-1 start yet again. Oh my goodness, this was just ugly. If you wanted some hope that this team was going to put things together under Adam Gase, that has been basically nothing other than a shit show ever since he arrived as far as having any sort of consistency on offense. The defense is fine, but has never really been elite here. But if you wanted any hope that this was going to be the year that they start to put some sort of consistency around Sam Darnold to let us see if he's actually a good quarterback, it really does not look like that's going to be the case this year, and it really leaves you scratching your head. Where is this team headed? I don't know if they'll finish as the 32nd ranked team, but as we head into week 2, man, this team just has a lot of stuff to figure out. All right, then 31st. This won't be a surprise to anyone that follows me on Twitter. I tweeted about a week ago, gun to my head, who do I think has the number 1 pick in the 2021 NFL draft? I said the New York Giants. And, you know, it's not just losing week 1 against the Steelers. The Steelers are a good football team. I just look at this roster and do not get inspired, and most of those flaws that I'm worried about showed up for this Giants team. Defensively, they're scrappy, but don't have much of a pass rush, and their coverage unit is a disaster at the moment. And then on the offensive side of the ball, they can actually move the ball really well, but between Jason Garrett's play calling and Daniel Jones' propensity to turn the ball over, I just don't have any confidence in this team at all to actually put out a product that's going to win football games and not just, have some fun splash plays. I like some players here. I like Saquon. I like Darius Slayton. I like their receivers in general. But man, I just don't know how many games this team's going to win this year. Then staying put at 30 is going to be the Miami Dolphins. Looked about how I expected against the Patriots. The more things change, the more things stay the same. No Tom Brady, but they still cannot beat the Patriots. This team is just a long ways away at the moment. And when do we see Tua here? And is it even a good idea to go to Tua given the fact that this roster just is not really ready to compete at the moment? Then number 29, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to take a victory lap on this one. On my podcast last week, I said everyone needs to stop the tanking narratives. Leonard Fournette actively hurt this team's ability to move the ball. Ronnie Harrison was not a strength for this team. Yannick Ngakoue wasn't going to play for this team anyway. What this team's been doing is building a culture here. Yes, they've made their mistakes. Yes, they've had a ton of grievances filed against this team, but they are surrounding this team with players that want to be there, players that believe in this team's ability to win, and this team actually has some things going for them. It's a really young team, and I don't think this is going to be like a playoff team or anything, but I actually really believe in Gardner Minshew with these receivers. This is one of the deeper receiving cores in the league, with a bunch of guys that are fit perfect to play with Gardner Minshew. They got Laviska Shenault going early in this quick, short to intermediate passing game with Jay Gruden coming in here, one of the more under-the-radar play callers in the league, while not a great head coach. I'm buying into the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. It was really good to see them beat the Colts, and it was fun to see them have my back after I made them one of my plays this week to bet on them getting 8 points against the Colts. So +3 for the Jags, and then +3 for the Washington football team. Pretty ugly win. They had to battle back, but that pass rush, as we pretty much all knew heading into the year, really showed early, and that was the big reason they were able to knock off the Philadelphia Eagles. They just kept this team in it, and then Dwayne Haskins in this offense was able to make enough plays. A bit of a favorable matchup given all of those injuries on Philly's offensive line. Need to see some more. I'm still not overly confident in what this offense is going to be able to accomplish, but a huge first win. The Washington football team now has sole possession of first place in the NFC East, at least for now. Then 27th, the Carolina Panthers. This offense actually looked a lot better than I thought it would, but inversely, the defense looked about as bad as I expected. This is just a super young defense. You can't expect, especially in a COVID season, for a team like this to be able to really hold up on that side of the ball. But I am encouraged by what we saw from these playmakers. Christian McCaffrey doing his thing. It's going to be a competitive team because they're going to be able to score some points. But is Teddy Bridgewater going to be able to win those game scripts where he needs to score 30 points consistently? Probably not, but this is going to be a fun team to watch regardless. Then we got the Cincinnati Bengals staying put at number 26. Tough matchup for them going up against that Chargers pass rush, given the Bengals offensive line didn't get much of a chance to evaluate Joe Burrow, who outside of a cool touchdown run didn't really show us a whole lot. Bengals are fine. They hung in there with the Chargers and were a missed field goal away from sending it into overtime. I think this is about a good spot for them at the top of this bottom tier of teams. So then this next tier is just kind of purgatory teams that I can never really imagine being true playoff contenders, but teams that aren't easy outs. So we're going to have the Cleveland Browns dropping down 5 spots. They, along with the Jets, just had prototypical disappointment openers to their season. Now, I don't want to overreact to the Browns. They have a ton of talent on this roster, but how many times have we said that? I think 25 is a good spot for a team that just has massive culture problems and no identity, but a bunch of talent. This team's got to turn it around fast. I'm officially having some pretty major concerns about Baker Mayfield as well. At some point, you just run out of excuses, especially when you have all that talent around you. Then the Denver Broncos, injuries starting to pile up here. They should be getting Courtland Sutton back. Drew Lock showed some nice flashes, but also some disappointment as well. Big missed throw there at the end of that game that could have sealed it against the Titans. You obviously have the Von Miller injury factoring in here as well, leading to some of this drop. Interesting team. Need to see more from the Broncos. Then the Chargers +1. I think this is going to be basically the Chargers game script here, is run the ball a ton, play game management football with Tyrod Taylor, and hope that this defense can hang on. They would have moved up more, except for they did, within the time frame where we had them ranked 24th, lose Derwin James. So that's going to hurt them a little bit. But the defense still looked pretty good, granted against a favorable matchup with a rookie quarterback and no offensive line in front of them. Then we have the Detroit Lions staying put at 22. Tough loss for them to blow that game. It was looking like they were going to start 1-0, try to get arguably their best offensive player back healthy next week in Kenny Golladay, but a devastating loss. Second-round pick DeAndre Swift drops a game-winning touchdown in Detroit Lions fashion. Just painful to be a Lions fan. They're going to stay put at 22, still a competitive team. But certainly a heartbreaking one right there. They just can't seem to win close games. Then we have the Chicago Bears moving up 2 spots. Good comeback win. Trubisky just kind of looked like he did 2 years ago. Pro Bowl Mitch Trubisky, where he sucks for the first half, and then when this team kind of needs him to make some plays, he stops overthinking or underthinking everything and just plays football and can actually make some plays. I don't think we're ever going to get that Mitch on a consistent basis, but it was fun to see. Good win for the Bears. Defense showed up. Definitely a tough out. And then the Las Vegas Raiders. I want to move them up 5 spots here. I think I probably was low on them to begin with. I still have no faith in this defense, and I think a lot of the Panthers' offensive success also came from how bad this Raiders defense is going to be, but similarly to why we moved the Panthers up. The Raiders can score some points, and in a season where continuity matters a lot, I just think as low as I am on Derek Carr as a, low-end starter, a guy that they should probably replace eventually, you got a good play caller in Gruden, you got a ton of playmakers, a great offensive line. It's going to be a really competitive football team just because they can score points on offense. And Henry Ruggs got going in his first game here, which is definitely good to see. Something I doubted, that Derek Carr was going to look Henry Ruggs way downfield, and he certainly did not hold back, which could increase that ceiling of Derek Carr. Then we've got a tier gap up here, and I'm not going to lie, man. The next 12 teams, 13 teams, I haven't had ever probably as hard of a time ranking the middle cluster, and I think these are going to change a lot over the next few weeks. But 19th, leading this middling tier of playoff contenders that have a lot to figure out, the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to drop 8 spots here. I think they'll slowly climb up as they get Danielle Hunter back, as they work Yannick Ngakoue into this defense, and once they get Justin Jefferson going a little bit more. But right now, this is just not a good football team. They ran into a Packers offense that was really clicking, which didn't help. But I got major concerns about this offensive line. The receiver situation is pretty dire outside of Adam Thielen, and this defense is a major problem right now. They don't have a run defense. They don't have a pass rush until Danielle Hunter gets back, and we don't know if and when that's going to happen. That's kind of a weird injury. They're keeping a lot of that under the radar right now. And then this secondary with these young corners just got obliterated by the Packers receivers that are not that great. Obviously, Devontae Adams had his way, but even guys like Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling were getting open against these guys. So the Vikings have a ton to figure out, the biggest fallers of the week. And I'm starting to think this is a team that's going to be one of the most surprisingly bad teams of 2020. Then we have the Atlanta Falcons, who are going to drop down 3 spots here. Ran into a buzzsaw with Russell Wilson clicking. This defense just is not very good, but honestly, the offense didn't look as good as I thought it would either. I thought Matt Ryan was going to hit the ground running with Julio Jones and Ridley, Hayden Hurst, an improved offensive line, and throw the stats aside, like those were literally just mostly garbage time stats. This Falcons team just isn't that great. They can move the ball on offense, but they're kind of similar to just like the Raiders, where they're going to score some points, but how bad is that defense going to be on a given week? Then we have the Arizona Cardinals moving up 2 spots. A big win over a Niners team that wasn't exactly the Niners team that we know from last year with all of the injuries they have right now. Really good game plan to get the ball out quickly and neutralize that pass rush, but it's the Cardinals defense that's starting to catch our attention a little bit. The secondary was much better this week, granted against a beat down, injured receiving group for the Niners. One of the hype teams of the 2020 season, and maybe the only hype team that actually met their expectations in week 1 with a huge win against the Niners. Let's see if they can keep that up. Then we've got the New England Patriots. The fun has begun for Bill Belichick, who's just running a throwback football team. Run heavy, option offense with Cam Newton, play good defense. I don't quite know what the ceiling for this team is going to be. An offense that basically is forced to operate around the line of scrimmage when you look at the lack of receiving talent in addition to Cam Newton's lack of downfield accuracy. But knowing Bill Belichick and the history of this team, they could win a lot of football games 20-13 like they did yesterday. Then number 15, the Tennessee Titans moving up 3 spots. Really just climbing here as other teams fall. We've had all of those Patriot opt-outs since we originally did this ranking. Vikings, Falcons kind of disappointing. I was not impressed by the Titans, and while they're moving up 3 spots here, I think that 18th ranking looked pretty justified there. Ryan Tannehill looked like old Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry, that looks like a complete waste of a contract. Obviously, he's going to have some games moving forward, but so one-dimensional. On the flip side, though, this defense did look great. Granted, it was against Drew Lock without Courtland Sutton. This is just going to be a team that needs to scrap out wins. Them and the Patriots are extremely similar, although the Titans have more options offensively. Then we've got the Houston Texans. I mean, seriously, it is time for Bill O'Brien to abandon the GM chair and coach his football team. This team just lacks discipline on every level of the team. The secondary doesn't know what they're doing. The run fits are all over the place on defense. Offensively, the play calling stinks. Watson, the offensive line, the receivers, nobody's on the same page. This team has some hidden talent that people don't realize, and it was a buzzsaw going against the Chiefs. But they're going to have to turn around and take on the Ravens this week. And I really don't expect them to win that. We'll see how the rest of the season goes for them. Then we have the Indianapolis Colts dropping down 2 spots. Not going to overreact to the loss. Definitely a trap game, if you will, in week 1 there against the Jags. Also, just in this season especially, and anytime any of these teams have new quarterbacks, I think it's just going to take some time, especially with a guy like Phillip Rivers, who's a pocket passing, timing passer, working with a lot of receivers. I think this Colts offense just has a little bit to figure out, but overall they actually look pretty good offensively. And then defensively, we know it's a pretty good defense. Gardner Minshew just had him beat this week. Minshew really had all the answers, but this Colts defense, in theory, should be much better than they were last year, or at least a little bit better. And I think they'll bounce back, but certainly a concerning loss. Then the Philadelphia Eagles going to drop down 4 spots. I mean, this team had fallen and could not get up before the game even started. The injury report was just ridiculous. You don't want to make all of the excuses using injuries here for the Eagles, and it looked like they were actually going to overcome it for a while, but those injuries on the offensive line just caught up with them, going up against an elite pass rush, frankly, there from the Washington football team. They're going to start to get some of these guys back. A lot of these guys were surprising misses for the injury report. That's really the main story right now, but Carson Wentz down the stretch in that game was also head-scratchingly bad. So Eagles got a lot to figure out. Then we got the Buffalo Bills. They're moving up 3 spots as all these other teams are falling apart a little bit. Bills are just incredibly solid. They have continuity heading into next year. They have depth. They're well coached. But at the end of the day, they have Josh Allen, whose problems with accuracy persisted this week. It didn't matter against the Jets. If they were taking on some of these other teams around them, I think we would see that show up a little more. So I like where the Bills sit right now as a really good defensive team with an identity on offense, but still some question marks there at that quarterback position. I don't want to completely shred Josh Allen, though. He ran around and made some really impressive plays, too, despite having a lot of disastrous plays at the same time. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 10. They're going to drop down 3 spots. Look, I've been saying for like 3 weeks that this team was going to start slow, and that's pretty much exactly what we saw. Tom Brady just was not on the same page with these receivers. And this is a really young defense. They actually played pretty well, and they're only going to get better as the season goes on. But as we sit here right now, it's just not a great football team. I think they just have a lot to figure out. That's why they're in this tier of teams that need to figure things out. Then we have the LA Rams, the biggest climber this week, moving up 7 spots, a total statement win. And that's saying a lot considering I was actually higher on the Rams than most people, ranking them 16th. Everything was really clicking for this team. The offensive line looked better. Malcolm Brown looked like the best running back they've had since MVP Todd Gurley. Jared Goff was making all the throws. This receiving core looks insanely good as well, with plenty of options. And Sean McVay kind of has a new wrinkle going here with this hurry up, wear you down offense. And then defensively, like Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, they stole the show against one of the best offenses in the league in the Dallas Cowboys. And that's what they're really hoping to get from those two after giving up everything for Jalen Ramsey. So a huge statement win for the Rams. This NFC West is just tightening up like crazy right now. It's going to be a hell of a division to watch. Then we have the Dallas Cowboys moving up 1 spot despite the loss. this is one of those things, I do this pretty much every week. It's not all about wins and losses. The Cowboys were favored against the Rams for a reason. First game between Dak and CeeDee Lamb, they were missing their right tackle, and they were a brutal pass interference call, offensive pass interference call away from going into overtime. I think they'll be all right. I think the Rams just kind of caught them off guard a little bit with their game plan too. Then number 7, the Pittsburgh Steelers moving up 3 spots. The first quarter, Ben Roethlisberger looked like Mason Rudolph, and then all of a sudden it started to look like Ben Roethlisberger again, and that's really what this is all about for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have all this young talent with these receivers, and we started to see some of those flashes there. So if they can really get that going, this Steelers team, there's no reason they can't be a tier 1 type of team with how good that defense is and how loaded this offense is. It really does just circle around Big Ben. So we're going to continue to monitor that situation. It was only the Giants. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think the Steelers would actually really benefit from going out and getting a good running back, because when you have a defense like that and a quarterback that, while is still kind of Big Ben, I don't really want him whipping the ball all over the field. He already was getting his elbow banged up in this game. If they could find an opportunity to go and get a star running back, whether that's, trading for Kerryon Johnson or signing Devonta Freeman, get a little creative here. I think that could actually really benefit this team, especially with James Conner getting beat up. But even with Conner in there, he just didn't really have that it factor. So then we have a tier gap up into the top 6 here. And these are all pretty much like, barring some really unfortunate injuries, teams that I think are already kind of like locking themselves in for the playoffs. So we have the Seattle Seahawks at number 6. At worst, they're going to be a wild card team. I mean, when Russ plays like that, you're just going to win a ton of football games. I mean, he was just incredible. I think I heard he was 20 plus EPA this week, which is just insane. The let Russ cook narratives are building it up. Is Pete Carroll going to buy in? I really hope so, because if this is a regular type of offensive week for this team, granted it was just the Atlanta Falcons defense in a dome, it's probably not always going to look like that, but then you flip around and you got a defense that looked good for the most part until garbage time, really. So Seahawks at number 6, and then we have the Packers staying put at number 5. They stole the show this week. The team that, in my opinion, quickly became the most hated on team over the offseason. People always overreact to the offseason, and there's no way around it. The Packers didn't really get a whole lot better through the draft and free agency, but they still got better as a team. Year 2 in this scheme, clearly Rodgers looked more comfortable. He did have a chip on his shoulder. Played the best game he's played in years. And if Rodgers is playing like that on a week-to-week basis, the Packers are a Super Bowl contending team. But it's just 1 week. We need to keep seeing that from them. And this team matches up pretty damn well with the Minnesota Vikings as well. Then we have the San Francisco 49ers. They're actually going to drop down pretty much just injury-related. They're just not themselves right now. No Debo, no Brandon Ayuk, who's supposed to be another Debo. George Kittle was playing banged up. There's just only so much you can do with Kendrick Bourne and Raheem Mostert. And they still almost beat the Cardinals. So they're going to get those guys back pretty quickly here, and they'll bounce back. I'm not really worried about the Niners right now. Then number 3, the New Orleans Saints. I mean, this is one of the best rosters in the NFL, no doubt about it. This defense doesn't get enough respect. Probably the best offensive line in the NFL. You got a bunch of short to intermediate playmakers. Alvin Kamara looked like his old self. But the problem here is Drew Brees the arm strength just really looked like playoff Drew Brees, which is not a good thing. I'm sure Saints fans are getting tired of hearing about it, but I would say that's the worst Drew Brees has looked week 1 in his career, and it's easy to point to his age as to why. So something to monitor, but regardless, this team is super loaded and well on their way to another playoff season, it seems. Then we have a tier gap up again into the top 2 teams. I think the Ravens and Chiefs have really set themselves apart here. The Ravens just dominated the Browns. Lamar looked great, accurate, decisive. The defense for Baltimore. I mean, Cleveland helped them out by just being the Cleveland Browns as well and just turning the ball over and looking like fools. But this Ravens team is legit, and we're going to get to see them play the Chiefs here, not this upcoming week, but in week 3, which I am just so excited about. Not much to really say about the Chiefs. I mean, they look just unstoppable. They get the run game going now with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They got playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. They're number 1 until proven otherwise. I don't think I'll get any complaints about that. There are your Week 1 NFL Power Rankings. Let me know in the comments down below where you think this should go differently, especially in that middling tier 7 through 19. I'm curious how you guys would have those play out because I really struggled putting those teams in order. Again, please do hit that like button, like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's Power Rankings. Cheers as always. We'll see you for the next one. Peace out.